building a better Bay Area for a safe and secure future. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. Welcome to our daily program called Getting Answers. We're asking experts your question every day at 3 o'clock to get answers for you in real time. So today we'll have a professor from Cornell University who wrote an article for the New York Times 5 years ago, almost to the day, titled, "Can we please finally get rid of Aunt Jemima?" As you know, that happened today. We'll talk to her about that news today and what else could go soon. But first, Contra Costa County is allowing hair salons and barbershops to reopen starting today. And we wanted to get answers regarding how they might look. What better way to do that than to take you on a live tour? Joining me now is Megan Salon, the co-owner of Secret Garden Salon in Oakley. Hey, Megan, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Congratulations on your reopening. How's business today?
It's pretty busy. You know, it's a little nerve-wracking, but we're doing really well.
Like, do you have a waiting list? How long's the wait? Can you give us a sense for that?
I'm about 2 months booked out. It depends on the stylist. We've had 3 months of clients that we've had to cancel on. So you can imagine the chaos that comes along with that.
Oh my goodness. Is that partly because you had to socially distance, so you can't take as many people at a time in the salon?
It is that, also allowing the extra sanitation time. But, our stylists are pretty fully booked every day. So if you think about that, that's 90 days of, well, probably like 60 days of clients that you are fully booked every day. And then here we go, the doors are open and it's a mad dash to try to get everyone in while abiding to the laws and regulations.
So you're extending your hours?
We are doing high risk Mondays where our clients who are higher risk will be allowed to come in during those times. We also, our stylists are allowed to work 7 days a week, whatever they need to do to make that happen.
Okay. So Megan, I know during this time of closure, you've made some changes. Do you mind taking us for a tour to show us what are some of the physical changes you made at the salon?
I'd love to. I'd like to start you out front if I could, because we have a little setup right when we first walk in. So I'm going to start you out that way.
All right. I enjoy living vicariously through you and your phone. This is great. I feel like I'm there. But you made new requirements even before customers get to the salon, right? Even booking.
Yes, they get our guidelines list before they come. They have a form that they must fill out. It's a waiver, and they have to fill that out before entering the building.
Okay.
Once they get to the building, they wait for the stylist, and they see these signs. The sign tells you all the rules and regulations. There's a hand sanitizer pump right here for your hands. There's our salon safety guidelines and a mask, and I'm going to put one on as I'm walking in next to clients and stylists. Mm-hmm. Please hold 1 second.
Safety first, no problem. We can wait.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And I noticed that door's closed. Do you guys keep the door closed or locked at all times?
Closed and locked.
Okay, so people can't just wander and they have to have an appointment. Oh, here we go.
So when you walk in, this used to be our waiting area. It's now where we have put a station, allowing for our social distancing to happen throughout the salon. Mm-hmm. We have removed our break room is in here. It's a little bit of a mess, but we have removed our break room. There's no break room at the moment.
So I noticed that your customer was that coloring? Are you doing all your services right now, or are there some services that you're not performing?
Everything. The only thing we're not doing is blow drying.
Why? Just takes too long?
We just don't know. It's just so unknown, right? The airborne qualities of it all. And so we just want to make sure that, we're being safe. As more information comes out, we'll definitely do our part to, switch things up. But for right now, until we know more, we're going to just do what we do.
Is there a time limit on the appointment?
We're trying to do only maintenance color, like touch-ups, partial highlights, like in and out. 45 minutes of contact or less than processing time, and each will leave wet.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Get people on their way. They can do that at home. What about people who might come in with you, like a child or maybe the person who gave you the ride to the salon?
There will absolutely be no guest tagging along with you at this time. It is, we cannot be at full capacity, so we do not need any extra bodies in there. Plus, it's just not what we striving for, greatness on this whole pandemic situation. We want to keep it less contact, less people, all the way around.
Sure. Okay, that's good practice. What about, I see you're all wearing masks, but are there other things that you're doing, like taking temperatures, or is that something that you want clients to do before they come?
They will do that before they come. That's along in the waiver. And then we just ask them some COVID questions, and then we just ask them to follow our policies, which is a mask at all times, and just following our rules, washing your hands before you come in, being okay with the no blow drying.
You haven't encountered any challenges with people keeping their masks on or saying, I don't want to wear it? Because we've seen that on airplanes, right? Even though the airlines have the rule of saying, please keep your mask on if you're not eating, but a lot of people don't seem to want to do it, and then the flight attendants don't want to have to confront them.
It's true. I have heard that a lot through hairstylists, but it's our first day and people are chomping at the bit to get in the door, so they could wear a hazmat suit if we asked them to.
Gotcha. No, I totally get that. What about payment? Have you changed that up? Are you going cashless?
We're doing contactless payment. If clients want to use cash, we will provide an envelope for them to put the cash in, where we will then, keep it just like we'll disinfect it in however we can in that measure.
Got it. Hey, Lockhand wants to know if you're doing eyebrow waxing yet.
We are not cleared for waxing or nails, which is a real bummer because our esthetician and nail tech are ready to get going.
I do understand, though, that the governor's guidelines do allow for nail salons to resume this Friday if their county is okay with that and applies for that and moves forward. But I think at least that offers you some hope, right? Are you getting ready?
Yeah, it's a discussion. We haven't had them in a discussion in months, so that's huge. We're getting ready. Actually, I'm going to take you there right now. We are working on our nail area. We have gotten a plexiglass put up.
Oh.
I don't know if you can see it,
Yep,
but if they put their hands right through here, she will stay there. This will get moved to the middle of the room. The clients will walk in and out this door, so they won't be passing the nail tech at that moment. So they'll have their own entrance in and out.
I see. All right. We do know that in San Francisco, they, will be a little later. In Contra Costa County, hopefully you'll be able to resume soon in a very safe manner. We appreciate the time you spent. One last question before we go. Are you raising prices given your additional cost to have to operate this way?
We are not. We feel super blessed that we've had clients that have waited for us through this whole thing. So we feel like the best thing we can do is give back to them as they have for us.
All right, Megan Salon, co-owner of Secret Garden Salon in Oakley. Best of luck to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, coming up next, Aunt Jemima is gone. So now what? We'll talk to an associate professor at Cornell University about racist symbols to reconsider and why it took so long to see this change. We're taking a short break on the air, but the conversation continues on our live streams, including Facebook Live right now. All right. Hey, Facebook friends. Thank you for joining me today for Getting Answers. Thank you so much, Megan. Nice to see you. So a couple big things. Contra Costa County, where Oakley is a part of, has resumed hair salon and barbershop services beginning today. So they are busy. They are booked. As you heard from Megan of Secret Garden, they actually have, this pent-up demand. They're booking like more than 2 months out. They're full because people have been waiting a long time. I wonder if you have been waiting to get your hair cut, or if you've resorted to cutting yourself, or getting a very close relative to cut it, watching YouTube videos, a lot of different options there. Hi, everybody. I see some of my regulars here. I found a hair cutter on Craigslist. He did a great job. Susan Harden, I hope you were being safe about it, and your hairdresser too. There's always that weighing of what you need versus risk. So it's a different answer for everybody. Just hope that you're keeping yourself safe to the extent possible. The conversation coming up is really interesting, so you definitely want to stick around. Aunt Jemima, the maple syrup. And today, PepsiCo, which owns the brand, says they're changing up Aunt Jemima. So we'll have that conversation. And in fact, I see our guest right now. We're going to talk about it with Professor Richey Richardson. Hi, Richey.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you. We
Nice
are
to
going to
meet
be
you.
on air in just about a minute. Right now, you are on Facebook live stream, just so you know. If you could
Okay.
tilt your phone camera down just a tiny bit, angle it down maybe like 5 degrees. Oh, perfect. Let's see. Leave that. Do we love it? We love it. Our director loves it. Thank you. All right, so 15 seconds, and we'll be going back on air. So post your question right now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back. Mars Incorporated owns Uncle Ben's rice and related products. They now say it's time to evolve the visual brand identity. This comes after PepsiCo made the announcement earlier today that it is getting rid of the Aunt Jemima brand. They say they recognize that the origins of the brand are rooted in nostalgia for slavery. So our next guest publicly asked for this 5 years ago. Yeah, she wrote an article in the New York Times titled, "Can we please finally get rid of Aunt Jemima?" Joining me today to talk about this and what's next is Associate Professor of Africana Studies at Cornell University, Richey Richardson. Professor Richardson, how are you?
Okay.
That's great to
Thank you.
hear. So it took a while, but you got your answer and your wish today. How do you feel about that? No more Aunt Jemima.
I think it really is an important step. It's really inspiring to see them attempt to move forward, to move their company and brand forward in a more visionary way. For me, it always goes back to Charleston and to the tragedy that happened there at Mother Emanuel AME Church with Reverend Clemente Pinckney and the 8 other victims of Dylan Ruth. And because he was invested in Confederate flag symbolism, the question began to emerge, well, what other symbols need to go? So that's how the piece came about in the New York Times and how I ended up writing about how I ended up writing about Aunt Jemima. And so this is the 5th anniversary. And yet again, there's been the tragedy of George Floyd and there's continuing protests. So I'm very saddened that we're actually in this space once again, but I think that it's going to be so important to continue to think outside the box, no pun intended, and to continue.
That's okay. I do enjoy puns. But you know what? On our earlier show today, we asked viewers what they thought about this. Actually, more than half said PepsiCo should have kept the name Aunt Jemima. What do you want those folks to consider? What do they not know? Maybe you can draw on your own experience.
Well, I understand the attachments that some people have to symbols like Aunt Jemima. For some, she represents home, she represents family, she represents a kind of maternal image and, what we think of as comfort food. But there's another side to it,
I think
Is
you're,
that
I think
okay?
you're,
Is that
I think
okay?
you're,
Is that
I think
okay?
you're,
Is that okay?
wait, there's a little bit of an echo. I want to let our viewers know we're also showing a picture from Gone with the Wind. It might be a good time as they're looking at that because I'm wondering if you see a connection between Aunt Jemima and the Hattie McDaniel character in Gone with the Wind.
Yes, definitely. Hattie McDaniel gave us a very feisty embodiment of the mammy, and I'm crazy about Hattie McDaniel. I respect her tremendously as an actress. She had to deal with the conditions under which she worked, the times in which she lived, and so the mammy in Gone with the Wind is intimately linked to the Aunt Jemima stereotype. I think that when people want to hold on to these images, though, what they need to recognize is that this is making fun of people. This is a caricature. That's what ththese images were intended to be. They were intimately tied to notions of Black inferiority. And so and think about what a lot of people do without knowing the damage they're doing. Like when they put on the black face and want to different black stereotypes.
Because it
you know,
is a stereotype and it's a caricature, right? It's not a complex person,
Right.
but you have the good black and the bad black. And even when it's the good black, like the Aunt Jemima or Uncle Ben's character, that's still insidious. And really, would you argue, no better than the bad stereotype?
Right. They end up being two sides of the same coin. And I think that these benign images can seriously repress the deeper implications. And a lot of times people have continued to be in denial about the ways that these images can be linked to certain microaggressions against Blacks. Would anyone want to have anything around that made fun of them, that sort of thing, or be the butt of the joke? And so these images take us back to some of those problematic dynamics.
Yeah.
I think that's obvious when we look at images like lawn jockeys, and they're obviously cringeworthy. And so the box on the breakfast table seems a bit more innocent. But then when we take a second look, we realize that it has problematic implications.
All right, we have a question coming in from one of our Facebook viewers, Robert Hedrick. He says, I just became aware that Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, was a racist slave owner. Will there now be no more Star Spangled Banner? What is your opinion on that? Is there a comparison there?
Well, I think in some ways, yes. I really do think that in some cases we need to begin conversations so that we can excavate and pull out these layers and help people to understand, what is at stake in certain national images and or monuments, because a lot of times the problematic connotations are not as obvious for some people, and so it can feel jarring when folks suggest, "Oh, wow, that just needs to go." But increasingly, we have to get to a place where more and more people will feel comfortable with divesting from painful images of the past, and then envisioning more inclusive monuments for the 21st century, or thinking about what monuments mean or the extent to which they should exist.
Right, indeed. We're seeing Confederate statues and flags being removed as well. That's what we're showing video of. But that debate and battle is still very much going on. I should just let folks know we're going to break, but Professor Richardson also famously taught a Beyonce course. We're going to talk about that, so don't go anywhere. In fact, let's go talk about it on Facebook Live right now. You can join us there if you like.
In commercial break.
All right. Professor Richardson, hang on as I check in with my producer. Are we wrapping up during this break, or are we coming back for more? All right. If we come back for more on air, how much time do we have? 6.5. Oh, yeah, no, we could chat about that. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I want to ask you, let's save the Beyonce conversation for when we come back on air, but we're on Facebook right now, and I'm wondering if you think, is it any better if the company relying on racial tropes in advertising, if that company is minority owned, is that any less hurtful or offensive?
Well, we really have to think about all of the images that we hold dear. I mean, I've been having this conversation since at least since high school, and since the early 90s, especially when I was in college, and all of the problematic images of Black women were circulating in rap, all of the images in Rump Shaker and the litany of videos along those lines. And so these were technically produced by Black artists, but representing the Black woman's body in a very objectified way. And so, yeah, I think across the board, we always have to be concerned about images that are problematic.
I'm wondering, at Cornell, your own university, are you guys currently working on new curriculum in the wake of George Floyd and sort of like this awakening of America's race consciousness? What changes do you expect?
Well, it's kind of an extension of what we do. There was a famous student occupation here in 1960 that occurred where our undergraduates and graduate students
I'm sorry, Professor Richardson, if you can hold on, because we're coming back on air.
Okay.
All right. All right, we are back with Rashay Richardson, Associate Professor at Cornell University. We were talking about Aunt Jemima being no more, and this is something she wrote about in an op-ed in the New York Times 5 years ago. So it's delayed gratification. Nonetheless, it's happening. And also, Professor Richardson, you a few years ago taught a course, very revolutionary at the time. It's all about Beyonce. I think it's called Beyonce Nation, right? Talk about that, because you really wanted to explore the image of Black women and how we got from Aunt Jemima to where we are today and how that's evolved. Tell me, what do you think? How has it evolved?
I think that it's evolved in very inspiring ways. I mean, you have icons over time like Mary McLeod Bethune, Wells, Sojourner Harriet Tubman, Michelle Obama, and yes, Beyonce. But so often, images of women like that, images of empowerment, are obscured so that you have a reliance on stereotypes. And so when we let go of the stereotypes, I think there's more room to celebrate images that are empowering of Black women, and that they will hold a lot of potential to really uplift Black women, girls, and inspire people everywhere.
Do you think Beyonce is sort of like the embodiment of all those potentials?
Well, she is for me. I mean, that's the premise of my forthcoming book, really. Emancipation's Daughters, Reimagining the National Body and Black Femininity. And so the conclusion focuses on Beyonce, and that the research for that conclusion is actually what led me to develop the course Beyonce Nation, because I think that Black womanhood has often been figured as being object, as we've seen in the image of Aunt Jemima, but there have also been images of Black womanhood that really come to represent American identity. And those images are less familiar. So in our time, Beyonce is definitely a persona like that. And that's one of the reasons I find her to be so fascinating. You know, about how she's brought us to a formation nation.
Right. I mean, but I will say today's young people, I think that is their view. That is who they think exemplifies the Black woman. And you have Michelle Obama, right? I think when my kids walk by the grocery store, they don't know that Aunt Jemima character. It's not what they see today.
Right, right. And so we have to increasingly recognize that, you know, our nation is becoming much more diverse, and we have to think about how we will best reflect those futures to come. You know, and it doesn't mean that we, you know, throw away the baby with the bathwater or send a ball through history. I think that we learn from our past, because anyone who is unfamiliar with the past is also more likely to repeat it. And so as best we can, you know, we have to grapple with these painful histories, you know, recognize what is valuable to celebrate and validate, but then continue to move forward in ways that honor a range of people. And it's not enough for companies to stop with removing the problematic symbols. It's also important for them to rethink their workplace cultures and to ensure that they have welcoming, inclusive, diverse, and safe climates for a range of workers.
Right, the removal of the symbols, that's just the first step, right? But in terms of Black women as catalysts for change and this new era, right now it's very apropos because we're talking about very likely a Black woman that will be put on the ticket, the Democratic ticket, with Joe Biden as his running mate. As you know, some of the front runners being named are Senator Kamala Harris, Representative Val Demings, and of course Atlanta's Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, all very strong Black women. How important do you think that is?
And we can't forget Stacey Abrams.
Oh, Stacey Abrams of Georgia, of course. But how important do you think that is?
I think it's very important. I mean, we can't ignore, say, like, let's take how much Black women helped to impact the vote in 2016 in the most recent presidential election. We can also think of the role that they played in the Senate election in Alabama, and helped to elect Doug Jones. And so Black women have really been very much at the forefront in terms of advancing the grassroots movement, you know, and that's been true in history as well. And there's also what so many thinkers have said over time in different ways, and most notably Anna Julia Cooper, this notion of when and where I enter, she suggests is so important. When the Black woman enters, she suggests that the whole race would enter. But I think I would even broader that and say that when we uplift and give voice to Black women, we empower a range of people. And I think that's what the protests are showing, because you have the Black Lives Matter movement catalyzing and energizing protests around the nation and world, and people concerned about, the issue of violence against Blacks in policing, but then also a range of other issues have come forward.
I wonder if you think the evolution of Black women, how is the evolution of Black men mirroring that, or is it going in a different direction and not really on a parallel?
Well, I just think that it's important. In my work, I have looked at Black masculinity, and actually Black masculinity was the foundation upon which I developed this project, because so often Black men have been set forth as being representative of the race. And so that's one of the reasons that I started there. But I feel that there has to be that complementarity to realize how interconnected, interlinked our struggles continue to be, and intersectional approaches to advocacy and activism are crucially necessary. Mm-hmm. And so even say for Black men who care about what's going on with Black men, we have to understand the importance of recognizing Breonna Taylor, Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland. The Say Her Name movement is so crucial.
Mm-hmm. Professor Richardson, we started with Aunt Jemima and then moved on to a whole host of other topics. All I can say is I hope your class is one of those classes that Cornell puts online for free so that I can pop in every once in a while. Great conversation. I really
you're most welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break, but thank you. Do we have time for the break? We do, yes? We do have time for the break. Okay, be right back. All right. Hey, folks, I hope you're enjoying today's conversation. It certainly is very thought-provoking. We talked about Contra Costa County resuming hair salons and barbershops, and then, of course, the state allowing nail salons to resume operations. That is, if the county that they're in allows for it. And you saw at Secret Garden how they've already made a lot of alterations, from the booking process to the checking in to the interior space with the plexiglass and the social distancing. That was really interesting, and some of the Bay Area counties will no doubt follow shortly. We talked to Cornell University's Professor Riche Richardson, who wrote a story, actually an op-ed in the New York Times 5 years ago, saying Aunt Jemima needs to end. And 5 years later, that was answered. In fact, yeah, about 5 years to the day. PepsiCo announcing that image, that symbol, rooted in the Mammy caricature of the South of old during the time of slavery, that is gone. All right, checking in with my director and producer. 1 minute to go. All right. Okay. All right, sounds good. Oh, yeah, is she still here? Oh, Professor, you know what? I could no longer see her. Professor Richardson, thank you. I didn't even know you were here because it cut out from my monitor, but thank you for your time. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Let's do it again soon. Take care.
Okay, you too, take care.
All right. Oh, I apologize. We could have chatted with Professor Richardson for a couple more minutes, but I didn't know.
15.
Okay. All right, getting ready to go back on air.
In 10.
No haircut in 3 months.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us today on this interactive show, Getting Answers. Hopefully you learned something from getting an inside look at this hair salon that's now open in Contra Costa County, and the changes you can expect. We'll be here every day at 3 o'clock on air and on live stream answering your questions, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, abc7news.com, and our app. Take care.
We are out.
All right, Facebook friends, thank you for joining me today. I'll see you here tomorrow. Bye-bye.